My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole our $250, $0 savings, and now her brother is suing me over a house I inherited. Did I really lose everything to her lies? Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, if you told me a year ago that my wife, Lisa, would cheat on me with her boss, steal our savings, and then try to screw me over legally, I'd have laughed in your face. But here I am, sitting in my living room trying to piece together how everything went so wrong. It all started subtly at first. Small things that I didn't pay much attention to, her phone ringing at odd hours, her being unusually secretive about her texts, or her suddenly being too busy to spend time with me. I figured she was stressed at work or maybe just tired. We'd been together for nearly 10 years. I thought I knew her inside out, but I was wrong, dead wrong. The first real sign was when I noticed her changing her schedule without telling me. She'd leave early in the morning, come back late, and sometimes she'd be strangely defensive when I asked where she'd been. One night I decided to check her phone out of curiosity. I know, trust is supposed to be there, but after months of feeling like I was being kept at arm's length, I couldn't help myself. What I found was shocking. Texts from her boss, Mark, full of flirtatious messages. Not just innocent, how was your day stuff, but explicit, suggestive, and downright inappropriate. They were planning dinners, late-night meetings, even sneaking away to hotels. My stomach dropped. I felt sick. I'd always thought Lisa was a little bitchy, sure, but I never imagined she'd betray me like this, not with someone she worked with and definitely not behind my back. I kept digging. I found receipts for hotel stays, sometimes with her name, sometimes just initials. I found emails discussing the plan to keep things hidden from me. It was like a punch to the gut every time I uncovered another piece of the puzzle. I started noticing her phone was always on silent, her excuses more flimsy. She'd say she was working late or going to a friend's house, but I knew better now. She was lying. One night I caught her in the act. I was coming home early from work, something I rarely did, and I saw her car in the driveway, but she wasn't home. I checked her phone again and I saw a message from Mark. Can't wait to see you tonight. Let's not make this the last time. I felt my blood boil. I waited in the dark, heart pounding, until she came in. When she saw me, her face went pale. She tried to lie, of course. Said she was working late, meeting a client, or just out with a friend. But I had enough. I confronted her right then and there. I told her I knew everything. Her face twisted with anger and defiance. She spat at me, called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, and that I was crazy for suspecting her. She even had the nerve to cry and say I was accusing her of something she didn't do, as if I was the problem. That moment was like a punch to the stomach. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she cheat on me with her boss, someone I thought was just and then try to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one? I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so fast. The worst part, the financial damage. We had saved $250, $0 for a house for our future. She knew how much that money meant to me, but I found out she'd been secretly siphoning some of it off. Small withdrawals here and there, hidden in fake expenses, fake receipts. It added up. Turns out she'd been planning this for a while, probably knowing she was going to cheat and steal. I felt like I'd been by a tornado. My life was unraveling faster than I could catch my breath. I started questioning everything, my marriage, my judgment, my trust. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs sooner. How could I have been so blind? I had always believed in honesty, loyalty, and sticking together through thick and thin. But Lisa, with her bitchy attitude and her lies, had proven me wrong. She was a master manipulator, convincing me she loved me, all the while sneaking around behind my back, and it didn't stop there. After I confronted her, she doubled down, said she was just stressed, that Mark was just a friend, that I was reading too much into it. But I knew better. I had proof, and I had my gut. The betrayal cut deep. I felt like I'd lost not just my wife, but my trust in everything I believed in. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering what would come next. All I could think about was how she'd lied to me, stolen from us, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I was angry, yes, but beneath that anger was a deep sadness. I thought I knew her. I thought we had a life together. Turns out none of it was real. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying every moment, every lie, every betrayal. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let it go on so long. The trust I had in Lisa was shattered, and I felt like I'd been sucker punched in the gut. That feeling of betrayal lingered, twisting inside me like a poison. The next day, I started digging deeper. I needed proof, more than just her texts and emails. I wanted to understand the full scope of what she'd done. I went through our bank accounts, our credit card statements, and I discovered she'd been secretly withdrawing money from our savings account for months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. The total was staggering, over $100, $0 gone. She'd been planning her escape or maybe her new life right under my nose. I also found out she'd been secretly paying her boss, Mark, for special favors using our money. She'd been funneling cash into an account under a fake name. I felt sick reading the transactions. She lied about her expenses, about her work trips, about everything. Every detail was a lie. It was like my entire life with her was built on a house of cards, and now it was collapsing. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with evidence. I called her at work, told her I knew everything, and demanded she come home. When she arrived, I laid it all out: the texts, the bank statements, the receipts. Her face went pale, then red with anger. She everything called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her. She said I was overreacting, that I was jealous and possessive. She even had the audacity to say that I was just insecure because I was successful enough for her. I was done listening to her lies. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I'd had enough of her games, her manipulations, her lies. She yelled, called me a controlling bastard, and threatened to take me to court over the house we inherited from my grandfather. That's when I realized she was trying to spin this to her advantage, to turn her betrayal into a legal battle. The house. That was a whole other nightmare. I inherited it from my grandfather a few years ago, and it's worth a lot, probably close to $1 million now. But Lisa's brother, David, is now suing me, claiming I'm not the rightful owner because I supposedly misrepresented the estate. Papers. Honestly, I think she's planted the idea in his head. She's always been good at manipulating her family, making herself look like the victim, even when she's the one who caused all the damage. The emotional was relentless. I felt rage, despair, and deep sadness. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I was facing the fact that my wife had lied to me for years, stolen our savings, and was actively trying to destroy what little I had left. I felt betrayed not just by her but also by her family, especially her brother, who's now suing me over a house I inherited and had every right to. It's like she's trying to erase me entirely, to wipe out my life's work and leave me with nothing. I remember sitting alone in the living room, staring at the walls that once symbolized our future. Now they just felt like a prison. I was angry at her, yes, but also at myself. How did I let it get this far? I kept asking if I should have seen the signs earlier, if I was blind to her bitchy attitude, her manipulations. I felt used, played, and completely lost, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her keep twisting the knife, stealing from me, and lying about everything. I had to protect what was mine, even if it meant fighting her and her brother in court. I decided I'd get a lawyer, fight the lawsuit over the house, and start the process of rebuilding my life. I had some savings left, and I wasn't going to let her take everything, not without a fight. The hardest part was realizing I'd have to rebuild trust, trust in myself, in others, and maybe even in love again someday. Right now, I just felt numb. Every betrayal, every lie, every dollar she stole, it all added up to a mountain I didn't know how to climb. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd lost a lot, but not everything yet. And I was determined to make her pay for what she did in whatever way I could. After I gathered all the evidence and confronted Lisa again, I knew I had to act fast. The The emotional toll was wearing me down, but I also had to think strategically. If she was willing to lie, steal, and manipulate to get what she wanted, I couldn't just sit around hoping she'd change her mind or feel guilty. No, I had to plan my next move carefully. First, I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, someone who specialized in estate law and family disputes. I needed to protect my rights to the house, especially since Lisa's brother was now involved. From the start, I made it clear I wasn't backing down. I had every right to that inheritance, and I wasn't going to let her or her family steal it from me. The lawyer advised me to gather every document, every piece of proof of the estate, the withdrawals, and her affair. I did that quickly, even digging into old emails and bank statements I hadn't looked at in years. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, trying to spin her lies. She told her friends she was just stressed at work, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do, and that I was controlling. But I knew better. I saw her behind the scenes, trying to manipulate her family into taking her side. Her brother David was a weak link, easily swayed by her tears and her stories. I could see he was already leaning towards suing me, claiming I was an unfit owner of the house, that I'd somehow misrepresented the estate documents. I decided I needed to get ahead of her moves. I contacted my own family and friends for support. Some of them knew what was going on, and they urged me to keep my cool. They told me to document everything, keep a record of her lies, and prepare for the legal battle ahead. I also started to secretly record her conversations when I could, just in case I needed proof of her trying to manipulate the situation further. One afternoon, she came home furious. I could tell she was angry because I'd refused to give her access to the bank accounts or the estate papers. She was yelling, calling me paranoid, possessive, and even crazy. She threw a tantrum in the living room, demanding I give her control of everything. I stayed calm, told her she wasn't getting anywhere with her lies, and that I was going to protect what's mine. Her bitchy attitude was on full display. She called me a heartless bastard and said I'd regret this when she took everything she deserved. That night I sat alone again, feeling the weight of what was happening. The betrayal cut deep. I'd always believed that Lisa was a strong, independent woman. Sure, she was bitchy sometimes, but I thought she loved me. Turns out she was just using me. Using my trust, our savings, even our inheritance to cover her own lies and her affair with Mark. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind for so long. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. How could she have stolen our money? How could she cheat on me with her boss, someone I'd always thought was just a douchey? And now, she's trying to sue me over a house I inherited from my grandfather, as if I don't deserve it. It's like she's trying to erase my entire life, my family legacy, everything I've worked for. I decided I couldn't just sit back and let her manipulate her way into taking everything from me. I had to fight back legally, morally, and emotionally. I started working with my lawyer to draft a response to her brother's lawsuit. I also contacted a private investigator to dig into her financials further, see if she'd hidden more money, or if there were other assets I didn't know about. I wanted to be one step ahead of her always. In the meantime, I also made the difficult decision to start distancing myself emotionally. I knew I couldn't save the marriage. I'd given her enough chances, and her lies had broken whatever trust we once had. I realized I had to think about my own mental health, my future, and how to protect myself from her schemes. I started seeing a counselor, not just for the pain, but to help me keep my focus and clarity. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. One wrong move and everything could blow up. I was constantly on edge, waiting for her next move, wondering how far she'd go to destroy me. I knew she was bitchy, manipulative, and cunning, but I refused to let her win. I had to stand my ground, even if it meant losing her, even if it meant losing the house or the money. Deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The fight over the estate, her brother's lawsuit, and her lies, they all added up to a long, difficult battle, but I was determined. I wasn't going to be the fool who lost everything because of her lies. I'd fight with everything I had for my dignity, for my inheritance, and for whatever shred of integrity I could still hold on to. Because at the end of the day, I knew I deserved better than this. I deserved the truth and I was going to get it, no matter what it took. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Every morning I woke up with a sinking feeling that she'd come back, try to gaslight me again, or worse, try to take everything I had left. I kept my phone close, watched my email like a hawk, and stayed in close contact with my lawyer. I refused to let her manipulate me into giving her anything more than I already had. But behind all that, I felt exhausted, emotionally drained, angry, and betrayed on a level I never thought possible. One day, I got a call from my lawyer. It was worse than I thought. Lisa's brother, David, had filed a formal lawsuit claiming I'd misrepresented the estate papers, that I'd been dishonest about the inheritance and that I had no right to the house. The legal documents were full of legal jargon, but the gist was clear. He was trying to take control of the property, claiming I was an unfit owner or that I'd somehow cheated the estate. I knew that Lisa had been whispering to him, feeding him stories to turn him against me. She'd always been good at playing the victim, and now she was using her family to wage war. I had to prepare for a fight, not just legally but emotionally. I was furious. How could she do this? After everything, she was still trying to screw me over, even now that she'd been caught cheating, stealing, and lying. I spent days gathering every document I could find, proof of the inheritance, bank statements, her secret withdrawals, emails, and texts. I also hired a forensic accountant to verify the money trail, just to be sure I had everything solid. I wanted to crush her lies with facts. I knew she'd spin stories, try to make herself look innocent, but I was determined to hold my ground. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She'd show up at the house unexpectedly, yelling, crying, trying to guilt-trip me into giving her access to the accounts or dropping the lawsuit. I kept my distance, refusing to give her the satisfaction. She'd call me heartless, cruel, and a bastard who's ruining his own marriage. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. Every time she played the victim, I saw through her act. She was just trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. One night she showed up drunk at the front door, screaming about how you'll regret this, and I'll make sure you pay. She looked like a wreck, her bitchy attitude replaced by slurred words and tears. I didn't even bother to respond. I just called my lawyer again and told her to stay away from me. I couldn't be around her right now. Her lies and manipulations were too toxic. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized I had to take care of myself. I started working out again, trying to clear my mind. I also started seeing a therapist to process everything, the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. I couldn't let her destroy me entirely. I had to stay strong for myself, to keep fighting for what was rightfully mine. The financial damage was staggering. She'd already stolen a significant chunk of our savings, and with her brother now suing me, I was worried about losing the house I inherited. I knew I had to prepare for a long legal battle. I couldn't let her or her family walk all over me. I had to stand firm, even if it meant losing sleep, money, or even the house. But more than anything, I kept asking myself, how did it all come to this? How did I let someone I loved betray me so completely? I kept replaying the signs, the moments I ignored, the times I excused her bitchy attitude or her secrecy. I kept feeling like a fool. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I saw that I'd been blind. She'd been planning her escape, her revenge, for months, maybe longer. I knew I had to be prepared for whatever came next. Lisa is manipulative and cunning. She's not the type to go quietly. I had to stay vigilant, keep my proof ready, and never let her get the upper hand again. I also realized I couldn't keep living in this chaos. I had to decide whether I was going to fight to save what was left of my life or just give up and accept the destruction she'd caused. The one thing I did know is that I wasn't going to let her win. I'd come too far, fought too hard, to let her take everything from me without a fight. I may have lost a lot already, but I still had my dignity, my integrity, and my right to that house. And I was going to do everything I could to keep what was mine. Even if it meant a long, ugly legal battle, I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. The court date finally rolled around after what felt like months of sleepless nights, endless legal meetings, and trying to keep my sanity intact. I knew Lisa's brother David was banking on emotional appeals and a few manipulative tricks to sway the judge. He's always been easily influenced by her tears and her sob stories, just like she wanted. But I had my proof. Every email, every bank statement, every fake receipt, and every shady withdrawal was ready to be presented. The courtroom was a tense place. I sat there feeling like I was walking into a battlefield. Lisa wasn't there, of course. She was too busy pretending to be the victim, probably trying to spin her lies to her family and friends. Her face was a mask of bitchy indifference that I'd seen before, but I knew better. I knew what she was capable of. When the judge called the case, I went first. I laid out everything, how she'd manipulated the estate papers, siphoned off our savings, and lied about her affair with Mark. I presented the bank statements showing her withdrawals, the fake receipts, the emails, and the texts. I pointed out how she'd been planning all along to leave me, how she'd been secretly stealing money for months. I could see her brother's eyes narrowing, trying to piece together her story, but my evidence was solid. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that I was an unfit owner, that I'd misrepresented the estate, that I'd somehow cheated her brother out of his rightful share. But I shot that down fast. I had the estate papers notarized and clear. I had the proof of her theft. I had her own words in her texts to Mark. I was calm, precise, and relentless. I refused to let her manipulate her way out of this one. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, scrutinizing the evidence. It was clear to me that the judge saw through her lies. After hours of testimony and cross-examinations, the judge finally made a ruling. He dismissed David's lawsuit, confirmed my ownership of the house, and ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen funds. The judge also noted that Lisa's actions showed clear signs of fraud and deceit, and that her attempts to manipulate the estate were unlawful. Sitting there, I felt a wave of relief, finally some justice. I had fought hard, stayed honest, and proven that I was right. But the victory was bittersweet. I knew Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. I could see her seething in the courtroom, her bitchy facade cracking just slightly. She knew she'd lost, but I could tell she'd be back, probably with new schemes. After the court hearing, I went straight to the house. It was quiet, empty, and a little hollow. I looked around, realizing how much I'd been through just to keep what was mine. The house, the inheritance, my dignity, everything was on the line. I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. I knew I'd have to keep fighting to keep everything she tried to steal from me, but for now, I was just glad it was over. Getting back to my life wasn't easy. I had to confront the reality that my marriage was over, that I'd been betrayed on every level. I started working with a financial advisor to secure what was left of my money, and I began the process of rebuilding. I also made a firm decision. I wasn't going to let her or her family ruin me. I'd take control of my life again, piece by piece. That night I sat alone in my empty house, staring out the window. I thought about how I'd trusted her, how she'd lied, how she'd stolen from us both. And I realized something important. I'd been naive, but I'd also been strong. I'd fought for what was rightfully mine, and I'd won. Not just the legal battle, but a part of myself I thought I'd lost. My confidence, my dignity. I learned that sometimes people you love can turn out to be the biggest betrayals. And that revenge isn't about hurting them back. Sometimes it's about standing up for yourself and reclaiming what's yours. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm done being a victim. I'll rebuild, I'll move on, and I'll never let anyone take me for granted again. Would you like me to continue with the final part? In the aftermath of everything, I've had a lot of time to reflect on what I went through. Honestly, it's been one of the toughest experiences of my life. Trust shattered, money stolen, a marriage betrayed, and a legal war that felt like it would never end. But through all that chaos, I learned some hard lessons that I'll carry with me forever. First, I learned that trust is fragile and it can be broken in an instant. I thought I knew Lisa, thought we had a solid life together. Turns out, she was hiding a lot more than I ever imagined. Her bitchy attitude, her manipulations, her affair, her theft. I was naive to think I could see everything coming, but I was blind in love. Love can blind you, and that's dangerous. Now I realize that trust has to be earned every day, and you can't ignore the red flags just because you want to believe the best in someone. Second, I learned the importance of protecting myself, financially, emotionally, legally. I should have been more cautious from the start, more vigilant about our money, more wary of her behavior. I should have documented everything sooner, hired a lawyer earlier, and taken her manipulations more seriously. It's easy to get complacent when things seem fine, but betrayal often lurks beneath the surface. Now I know better. Third, I learned that revenge isn't about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming your dignity and standing up for yourself. I fought her legally, I fought her family, and I refused to let her take everything I worked for. That fight gave me a sense of control I desperately needed because, for a while, I felt completely powerless. I realized that sometimes the best revenge is simply winning your own peace of mind, your financial security, and your self-respect. And finally, I learned that healing takes time. I still have moments when I feel angry or betrayed, but I also have moments of clarity. I understand that I can't change what she did, but I can control how I respond. I'm slowly rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I've started therapy again, focusing on moving forward, on trusting again, but cautiously this time. I've also been reconnecting with friends and family who remind me of who I am outside of this mess. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I'm not the naive man I was before. I'm more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself from future betrayals. I don't regret loving her. Love is never a mistake, but I regret not seeing the warning signs sooner. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe in the best. Protect your money, your reputation, and your heart. And if someone betrays you like this, stand up for yourself, fight back, and don't let them take everything you've worked for. Because at the end of the day, you have only yourself. And sometimes, that's the only person you can truly rely on. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll be okay, stronger, wiser, ready for whatever comes next, and I'll never let anyone shame me for fighting for what's rightfully mine. I hope my story helps someone else see the signs early so they don't have to go through what I did. Because no one deserves that kind of betrayal, not from someone they loved and not from someone they trusted. Thanks for reading.